everybody, and welcome to this IMI webinar on the core topic on a comprehensive pediatric preclinical POC platform to enable clinical molecule development for children with cancer. My name's Catherine Brett, and I'm going to start off today by giving a little introduction into how to use GoToWebinar, and then my colleague Paediatric Sadala will give you a more general introduction to the webinar and will give you some useful advice on how to put together a strong application. After that, we come to the main point of the webinar, which is the presentation of the core topic by Luis Dancato of Lilly and Hubert Caron of Roche. At the end of the webinar, there'll be plenty of time for questions and answers, and I'll explain in a moment how you can ask a question to us. So firstly, how to use GoToWebinar. It's very simple. At the top right-hand corner of your screen, you should be able to see a control panel. You can expand and minimize it. You can make it go full screen, and you can attract our attention by raising and lowering your hand. If you want to listen in over your computer's microphone and speakers, just select that option in the audio panel. If you can't hear us, you need to check that your speakers have actually switched on, and also maybe do a sound check to make sure that GoToWebinar is picking up the right speakers if you have external speakers attached to your computer somewhere. To listen in over the phone, just select telephone and dial the numbers given. By default, it often comes up with an American number. If you're not listening in the US, then you can find other numbers by selecting one in the additional numbers list. Again, if you have problems, you can try another number, or you could try listening in over your computer's microphone and speakers. So, how to ask questions. The simplest option is to type your question into the questions panel and click send. If you want to ask a question over the phone, that's also possible, and you should attract our attention by clicking on the raise hand icon. You can send in questions at any time throughout the webinar, but we'll take them all in one go at the end. So before we start, I will just tell you that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll be publishing it on the IMI's website and YouTube channel, and we'll also be publishing the presentation and circulating the participant list. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Paediatric Sadala, who is the Scientific Project Manager responsible for this topic on the IMI side.
Hello, good morning everybody. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, and I hope this will be fruitful for all the participants to the webinar and future applicant consortium. So today the webinar will cover all aspects of the call topic. Mainly the objective of the project. Why is it that the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industry and Association with IMI has put forward this topic? What are the objectives of the project? What is it that this private partnership collaboration will bring? So the need for this public-private collaboration, as well as the structure of the project, how this project should be, proposed, and the expected contribution of the applicant, what exactly the EFP consortium is, asking from the applicant consortium. So what is exactly your contribution? The EFP participant will as well propose their contribution and define it properly here during the webinar, as well as what exactly are the key deliverables of this project. So what are we looking for when putting this forward, and what will be the output and the deliverable of the project. We will not address at all the rules and procedure in this webinar. The idea is that it has been already defined and addressed during a previous webinar on the 20th January 16. So for the time being, we will really concentrate on all the aspects of the call topic. So if I may go, before having the substance, let's say, of the call text, to some advice for you when submitting a proposal. There are some tips which are always good to highlight, even though sometimes they seem very obvious, like reading all the relevant material on the IMI website, meaning all the information is there. Please go through. You might be, this might be very wise decision, because sometimes we have seen action and proposal that has missed some information which should have been considered initially. So this is the first recommendation. Please read the relevant document, understand the IMI2 rules. They are different from the IMI1 rules. They are different from H2020 rules. So please make sure that when applying, you have the total knowledge of all these aspects of the IMI2. If there is any problem, please contact the IMI program office. And if you have a question, please address it to us. I mean IMI, the help desk of IMI, or me, as I will be the project officer here in charge of this topic. So any question has to pass through IMI office. So there is no contact which has to be made through the EFPA topic writers or coordinators, and this, of course, for the transparency of the whole process. But whatever question you will, send to IMI will be properly and duly addressed. So provide all the information to the reviewers, which will evaluate your proposal, because it's very important that there at the stage of your application there are not too much questions, and make sure that there will be a competition. So the more information, precise information you provide, the better your proposal will be, reviewed, and the better the feedback you will receive from this evaluation will be fair and appropriate, let's say. So start working early. As you know, the information was already available on the website as a pre-material. So this information is already there before the launch, was already there before the launch of the call text, topic text. Make sure that when you prepare your proposal, you finalize it and then submit it. It sounds normal, but it has happened that this was not the case for some applicants. So make sure that you push on the button of finalize your proposal, and then you submit it. You will have, we have, as you can see here, a link where you can have additional tips and information. We have more or less monitored with the time some mistakes that are common for each, call topic, that has been launched by IMI, and among which we have listed some, like the admissibility and eligibility criteria, which are not met. So among these criteria are, of course, the deadlines. So this is something you have to monitor very carefully. Make sure that you are still within the deadline. Make sure that your proposal is not out of scope. It has to really answer the main objective of the topic, and it has to address all the different, expected deliverables that the project will come with. So really read well the topic text and make sure that you address all of them. When you submit the text, you have to make sure that it respects the proposal template. This is also something that is important to address, and that, of course, there is a minimum number of legal entities. As you know, these projects are very much collaborative, multidisciplinary projects, so it's very important that all the, aspects are taken in consideration and are reflected in your proposal. So make sure that the number of legal entities there is also in line with our rules. And to increase your chances of success, make sure that in the proposal itself, you look if there is no redundancy between the partners. Make sure that they are aligned, that they are not overlapped, that each of the partners has specific tasks and objectives that will be filled in during the lifetime of the project. So again, I mentioned it earlier, all the objectives need to be addressed. This is really an imperative things to address, and as you know, as I mentioned, there will be competition, and this is again one of the criteria which will be looked at when evaluating your proposal. the limited impact of the proposal are also, how to say, something to consider because of the scope of IMI and the Horizon 2020. You have to make sure that the scope is as the, how to say, the ambition of IMI. And so even if the scientific excellence is there, make sure that, and I hope is there, make sure that the impact is following as well. So to find partners, project partners, this is probably something that some of you will look for. So first of all, make sure that you network with all your contacts in the field, okay? This is the best way to make sure to have all the participants with the expertise you are looking for. Of course, there are this action like the one we are taking here by organizing this webinar that you will have the possibility to network with fellow webinar participants that are here today listening to this webinar. And you have what we have developed here within the IMI is this IMI Partner Search tool, which will allow you to find probably partners that are missing in your consortium. This tool is not there to build a complete consortium, but you may find, how to say, some expertise which is missing there for completing your application. Get in touch, of course, with the local IMI contact point and state representative groups. This is where you can also find additional information as project partner, how to find project partner, and with your health national contact point. As you know, we are also active with the network on social media, LinkedIn group, etc. So make sure that you take advantage of all the the tools that we are proposing here. I think with that, I've finished my presentation, and I will be here. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fatia. So you can see there the email address for IMI that you should send any questions to after today's webinar. But meanwhile, I'm going to hand over to Louis Stancato and Hubert Caron, who will present the call topic to you. Louis and Hubert, it's over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the FPA partners of Bayer, Pfizer, PharmaMar, Roche, and Lilly, who have developed this call topic text, welcome. Thank you for joining. I am the project leader along with Hubert Caron, and we will both be presenting to you today. We're going to get right to it because we'd like to leave as much time as possible for questions and answers. You're all dialed in today because we're connected by a mutual desire to defeat pediatric cancer. And so it should come as no surprise to you that despite significant advances over the past 20 years, you go to the next slide, please, in the treatment and survival of pediatric cancer, we're still seeing 1 in 5 children die. Of those children who survive, the majority, upwards of 2/3, 70% of them, will experience lifelong and potentially debilitating secondary health care problems. Why do we find ourselves in this situation? Because, quite honestly, there's an underrepresentation of research tools to fight pediatric cancer. We are sorely lacking and behind our adult counterpart research capabilities. And on top of that, there's an incomplete understanding of what drives pediatric cancer. The models that are out there are often poorly characterized. All of this then limits the predictability of the preclinical testing paradigm that we've established, and ultimately we are not advancing molecules into the clinic as efficiently and as quickly as these young patients require. What is needed is a close partnership, and we have here it's written as an academia, FPA, and I think we have to put in as well an SME component to this partnership, which is essential to fighting pediatric cancer. Academia is well suited to developing relevant tumor models because essentially you are at the forefront of pediatric cancer research. You interact with the hospitals, you see the patients, you have access to the tumors. SMEs are, for lack of a better way of putting it, adept at industrializing so to speak, the PDX testing process. And FPIA partners, obviously, are those who have molecules with the potential for activity in pediatric cancer. The problem is we need to match them up with the appropriate tumors. So overall, a consortium would open doors to pediatric development in a concerted and rigorous fashion and will lead to a sustainable platform. We're going to hit on that topic a few times about sustainability for combating pediatric cancer for years to come. Go to the next slide, please. The objectives of the project are straightforward, and the overarching objective is to accelerate targeted pediatric drug development, and we will do this by building a comprehensive, sustainable translational platform of pediatric solid tumor PDX models, patient-derived xenograft models, as well as cell lines, organoids that match not only the PDX model but have fidelity all the way up to the tumor sample from the patient, as well as other models such as genetically modified models and additional ones as time, budget, and the science allows. These tools will then be used to support biomarker-driven patient tailoring of potential pediatric drugs by generating preclinical proof of concept data packages to identify promising compounds from the consortium members, which could then advance to the clinic. And our thinking is the molecules that we will initially interrogate will primarily be those that are already undergoing clinical testing, but we can discuss some of that later. Ultimately, we will develop new scientific insights into sensitivity and resistance to targeted agents. We will understand combinations of targeted agents, which can then be brought forward as potential new therapeutic regimens for pediatric cancer. All of this in the context of the biological diversity of the pediatric tumor. And finally, but of paramount importance, I would assign equal importance to this objective as I do to the development of the models themselves, is the development of informatics tools to enable these objectives. And I don't think this point can be overstated. This is a key element to this project and something that we have to be keenly aware of. Next slide, please, and Hubert will take this.
So here you have the project broken down in more detailed packages. As Lou stated in the last slide, the heart of the matter is to match mechanism of action of available targeted anti-cancer molecules with pediatric tumor drivers, and in this project to build a compendium of preclinical pediatric models and test them for molecular proof of concept, which are the two packages at the heart of this platform, which you see in the middle of the slide. This is supported, this is made stronger by several other activities. To the left you have the performance of target actionability reviews, and I'll come back to that later, and in silico target pattern analysis to show where are the potential usages of targeted molecules in the clinical series of children we can target through in silico analysis. And as Lou already mentioned, after we've generated models and generate data of those models and generate data of molecule use in those models, data reporting and molecular analyses are of paramount importance. And last but not least, this whole strong collaboration between academia, SME, and pharma should also lead to a common understanding of what do we feel are strong proof concept data, how much data do we need to move a molecule forward into clinical development, and make sure we communicate this in a uniform way with health authorities to ensure also regulatory buy-in to optimize development of molecules in children. Next slide, please. So the major tumors in scope of this project are 10 high-risk solid tumors, which are specified here. No need to go through. This is the regular, let's say, culprits in clinical oncology, where we do have unmet medical needs. And it would be very useful to have a series of PDXs reflecting the clinical spectrum per tumor type to be able to test the diversity of the clinic in PDX models and cell lines and organoids to bring proof of concept. Next slide. The the nature of this IMI2 call, as in all IMI2 calls, also here is pre-competitive. So it is pre-competitive collaboration between pharma and academia, and including SMEs. This entails that the models and technologies will be shared between academia and the pharma partners and SMEs joining the consortium, including PDX models, the matching cell lines, the transgenic models, and the humanized immunomass models. We will be starting up in this project as well. This will also include the complete characterization of data for all models, and obviously this has some inherent challenges with potentially whole genome data from patients and privacy, but that's typically something we need to solve in discussions with or solutions need to be brought forward by the academic consortium answering to the call, and then the definitive solution for these kind of issues will have to come from the merged consortium in the final project proposal. And the last major piece of data which is to be shared between academia and EPI partners is the standard of care testing data across all models, as they will be performed during the project. Next slide.
So thank you. The project will significantly benefit pediatric cancer R&D process in the following ways. First off, it will speed the development of the next generation of medicines, which will most likely result in an increased number of cures and potentially mitigating the long-term health effects associated with survival. So it's a double win. Save more lives, and the lives that we save, give them a better quality of life. This will be done through data-driven, rational decisions on which tumors to treat and with which combinations of agents. Again, emphasis on data-driven, and we will have, well, we'll discuss this more as we go along. And ultimately, pediatric drug development will be a fully functional research paradigm, similar to what has been done and continues to grow and develop for adult approaches. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go into this slide in detail. I will take each work package briefly in turn on the next slide. This is the suggested architecture of the project. I want to call your attention to the arrows with the years. It's a 5-year project, at the end of which you'll see a sustainability reference. Again, this is a key and obligatory element to any proposal coming forward, is there must be a sustainability model, the ability to continue on with the work that we've put in the first 5 years. Why build this if we cannot continue to use it and further develop it? You'll also note that under each of the arrows there are interim model and sustainability bubbles. This is essentially just to remind myself and those of you on the line that it's not a static process. We will continue and continuously monitor the development of this project as it goes along. Whether we do this on an annual or semi-annual basis, at this point doesn't matter. It's just that we'll be continually evaluating and modifying some of the approaches that we take based on the science, based on the budget, based on progress to date. You'll see at the top the work package 7, establishment and implementation of the sustainability model. This is something we hope to begin immediately, start thinking about what is the end result of this. And then we'll go to the next slide and take some of these different work packages in turn, please. So these are the key deliverables for each work package. Consortium management is the first one. This is very much an FPA, academia, SME partnership. I want to emphasize that essentially scientific and overall project lead resides with FPA, and both Lilly and Roche are the project leaders in this area. We ask that the academic proposals that come through have a project management organization piece, which will handle a little bit more of the logistics, and all of this will be done in collaboration with the IMI scientific officer. There's a target actionability piece where we will define preclinical proof of concept data packages and perform systematic literature reviews. And Hubert is a strong proponent of this, and he'll go into it in a moment. put it succinctly, the goal is to identify the best targets and processes to attack. Model development is obviously a critical component to this. Comprehensive panels of well-characterized pre-competitive preclinical models. And by well-characterized, we mean the available molecular characterization tools that are out there, from whole genome to whole exome, RNA-seq, reverse phase proteomic array. So from gene all the way to protein, understanding the machinery that drives the pediatric tumor. There's a regulatory component for this. We envision a framework for the interaction with PEDCO and ultimately the pediatric investigation plan process. We hope to establish consensus on what a preclinical proof of concept package in pediatric cancer will look like, which will just make things more efficient, speed up the development and identification and development of molecules for pediatric cancer and ultimately into clinical testing. Compound testing from all consortium members, a variety of compound types, including standard of care, targeted therapies, etc. And we have put in a pilot project. It's pathway evaluation. We've chosen the RAS MAP kinase pathway, which is obviously critical to the growth and tumorigenesis process, where we will bring our collective molecules against individual targets within the pathway to evaluate the effects along multiple nodes of a very important signaling pathway, and we can get into more of that later. This will help develop common methodology. It will also help us calibrate where we are with our process, as well as create some, I think, some very exciting publication, presentation, and ultimately clinical opportunities. The IT piece, this is a critical work package, as I discussed earlier. We have to have the ability to store, retrieve, analyze, and interpret data. And then finally, sustainability plan, a plan to continue post-IMI2 at the end of 5 years. What do we have? What will we be able to do in the future? And we need to ensure that this resource will be available into perpetuity, and we strongly encourage prospective academic and SME collaborators to connect with each other in order to bring forward the strongest possible proposal. Next slide, please. Hubert?
Yep. To give you some more detail where we are in our thinking about what is target actionability and what are proof of concept data supporting target actionability, we've broken down this data subcategories of a strong proof of concept data package here in this slide. It contains 8 subsets or modules, if you want. If you talk testing and delivering data, 2 of those modules are not in scope in the testing activities in this program. So molecular validation of the target in vitro models and molecular validation of the target in vivo models, RNAi, CRISPR, Cas9, short hairpins, gems, zebrafish, building those and or executing those kind of validation experimentation is not part of this program, but in the target actionability review part, where we gather all the data we have on a specific target in pediatric tumors, there obviously we have the opportunity to gather those data and help ourselves to decide on target actionability based on literature plus the data we can generate in this program. And the modules 4 to 8 are of no surprise to you. This is not rocket science. This is the clear dissection of what is proof of concept in an ideal world where there's no constraints on resource or models. And obviously we need to, one of the goals of this program is to work together to then specifically define what are minimally required data sets depending on the disease, the unmet medical need and the availability of models for a disease. What are for specific diseases minimally required data packages for a molecule to move forward in clinical development. Next slide. Next slide, please. And here is an example of a target actionability review we have performed at Roche. You can see we are open to sharing data, so we are pre-competitive already in the pediatric space. Again, the eight modules are there, and this is then supplemented by the availability of clinical data at the lower 3 rows of this review. This heat map is the result of extracting all literature we can find for the pediatric diseases listed on top, critically appraise the papers, score them on experimental rigor, and extract the data in there. And then use the aggregated available data per tumor, per category of the proof of concept package to score completeness and to score strength. And for now, it's 3 categories: strong, intermediate, so it needs more work, inconclusive, and negative, and all the gray stuff is not tested. This obviously has its limitations. It's a literature review, it's there, what's out there, but it's a good summary to start with to help us to decide on diseases with signals, disease where there's a lot of data, and disease where there's not so much data, where do we need additional data to be performed in the molecule testing of this program. Next slide. So this brings me, and these target reviews will be an activity of the program to make those molecule reviews, target reviews for the molecules we plan to test. And this brings me to the expected contributions of the applicants, of the applicant consortia, which essentially are a detailed listing of what Lou gave you in the beginning. This is all the academic and SME expertise which supplements the FPA partner expertise, and together we'll build a very strong consortium to make the best of this call and come up with a very strong system which will really make a difference in bringing molecules forward to children with cancer. And during time for questions, we can go into details if needed. For now, we'll leave it at this. Next slide, and back to Lou.
Thank you, Hubert. So the in-kind contributions of the FPA members, I will spend a little bit of time because my understanding is this often brings out a number of questions. Again, the partners are Bayer, Pfizer, PharmaMar, Roche, and Lilly. And Lilly and Roche are providing project leadership, including scientific leadership. What we bring to this partnership, in addition to direct cash contributions, are dedicated researchers such as ourselves, postdocs, overall project leadership, etc., and the ability to do cell line or run cell line testing for mechanistic follow-up, although we're also thinking about cell line testing in terms of potentially prioritizing molecules, and again, we can talk about that at the end. Significant expertise in chemotherapy formulation and dosing, available pediatric cell lines and PDX models, what we already have in our inventory, can and should they be brought to bear and brought into this collaboration. Certainly the development and validation of new pediatric models, for instance, PharmaMar is quite adept at developing PDX models and is offering up their expertise to help develop pediatric models for the consortium. I think one of our decided strengths are the informatics capabilities that we possess, all the way from storage and retrieval, but really into visualization, analysis, etc. We have significant expertise in consortium building and working in that area, and I think we can adequately bring that to bear in collaboration with our academic colleagues. Significant regulatory expertise, I think that's fairly self-explanatory, as well as molecular characterization techniques that all of us are familiar with. I think industry is uniquely positioned from a big science, big data point of view to provide this capability. And finally, compounds for proof of concept testing, though this does not exclude potential compounds coming from our academic and SME partners. Next slide, please. So what's in it for you? I think all of the key stakeholders stand to benefit greatly from this project. Ultimately, those who benefit greatly will be the pediatric patients. For academic researchers, it's a chance to get involved with some high-profile pediatric research on a very big scale. You'll see an expansion of the available models, as well as an expansion of molecules being tested across those models. Most likely, we will see clinical testing opportunities based on these results coming forward as either collaborations into the clinic, investigator-sponsored trials, what have you. And finally, high-impact collaborative opportunities will most likely develop across the consortium, in particular with the pharma partners. For the SMEs, you have an expanded pool of in vivo models to potentially work with, as well as an expanded pool of customers. You're bringing in new business. There are intangible benefits associated with an increased visibility in pediatrics. Nobody will say don't work in pediatrics. Everybody thinks we need to do more. For the patient organizations, they're going to see an acceleration of potential life-saving medicines, and we're going to see these medicines, we hope, progress into clinical development. They'll have a line of sight, almost guaranteed, if you will, given the 5-year horizon of this project, a line of sight for pediatric research and drug development. They will see progress as it develops and as this project evolves. And for the government regulators, we very much would like to partner with them to streamline and standardize the preclinical testing process for pediatric indications and potentially link this to the PIP process so we can spend less time worrying about how to do it and more time actually doing it and ultimately landing in the clinic. With that, I have nothing else to say. I am eager to hear the questions. Hubert, if you have any final thoughts or comments, please.
No, it's just to say that we're very excited to bring this call forward, and are really looking forward to getting a strong partnership going with the academic consortium, which will be selected to join with the pharma.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you for the presentation. As I said, it's now time for questions and answers. I'll just remind you, Fatia said it already, but you should not contact either of the people who you have just heard if you have any questions. This is really to avoid any conflicts of interest or even perceived conflicts of interest. If you have any questions about the core topic after today, you should send them to us at the IMI Program Office, and you can see the email address there, infodesk@imi.europa.eu. So just a very quick reminder, to ask questions, you have two options. You can type the question into the questions panel and click on send, or you can ask a question over the phone by raising your hand. We do actually have a couple of questions that came in advance in the comments question of the webinar registration. So one is the development of a genotyping platform also feasible for this call?
Should take that one, Hubert.
Yes, so genotyping of the models of the corresponding organoids and cell lines and of a series of primary tumors is in the call topic, is in scope, because we need to show that the PDX models and the cell lines have molecular characteristics which reflect the clinical diversity we observe in clinics. Therefore, we also want to include a patient series which is distinct from the PDX cell line series. So the short answer is yes, this is in scope.
Okay, thank you. We have a few questions that have come in now over the webinar tool from Roman Muff, most of which are more rules and procedures related. So the first question Roman asks is there a minimum amount of partners necessary to form a consortium? The answer there is yes, there is. For research and innovation actions like this, you need a minimum of 3 partners eligible for funding based in 3 EU member states or countries associated to the Horizon 2020 research program. Obviously, that's a legal minimum. If you don't meet that requirement, your proposal won't even be looked at, but you probably will need more in practice because, as Fatia said earlier, you do need to make sure you address all the requirements of the topic, and the speakers have just gone through those in some detail. They're also in the core text. Another question from Roman, should a commercial company be part of the consortium? Well, the FPA companies that are involved should not be part of the applicant consortium. What will happen is that all of the applicant proposals will be reviewed by independent experts, and the proposal with the most points, those people, they will go forward and work with the FPA companies to form a full proposal. So at this stage, you should not be contacting FPA companies. However, of course, SMEs and mid-sized companies based in Europe are eligible for funding, and we really welcome their involvement in IMI. Another question as well from Roman, do partners within the consortium need to demonstrate a common cooperative history? The short, not particularly. I mean, obviously you do need to be able to work together, but you don't need to prove that you have worked together in the past. I really would advise you, if you have a lot of questions about our rules and procedures, we had a webinar on that a couple of weeks ago. You can listen to it online, you can download the slides, and also a lot of the information is on our website. Fatia, do you have anything to add on any of these points?
No, thank you very much. I think you have covered them all. So these are not really the scientific questions that we are looking for, but the substance of the call text. I mean, you have the opportunity now to have the topic writer able to address your question, in-depth questions. So please make sure that you take this advantage and make sure that this is helpful for you when putting together your application. So please.
Okay, I will also add as well, I noticed a few people when they signed up for the webinar are kind of advertising their skills and their assets as project partners. I really would advise you then to put this kind of information in the partner search tool of IMI and also on our LinkedIn group. Those are both places where you can link up with other partners. And as I said, we'll be sending around the participant list later as well. So that's another opportunity for you to reach out to people. Ernesto Tomé has raised his hand, so I presume he wants to ask a question. Ernesto, I'm just going to unmute you, so you can go ahead and ask your question. Hello, Ernesto Tomé. Okay, he doesn't seem to be there. So I will go now to Imela Jeremias, who asks, how strictly is the call restricted to solid pediatric tumors? Might pediatric acute leukemia models also be studied?
At this point, we are solely focused on solid tumors.
Short and simple answer, thank you. And again, I would remind you, please read the topic text and follow it closely, because the reviewers will judge your proposal based on the topic text. Christian Schmays asks, is the use of novel techniques, for example, protein expression profiling, in scope and even advantageous?
So, Hubert here, the profiling, molecular profiling of the models, we're pretty pragmatic there. What we need to do is to be able to evaluate targets and target pathways for activation. The regular technologies obviously are sequencing, RNA analyses, and protein expression and protein phosphorylation analysis. But this is not an exhaustive listing. If in certain partners very strong expertise exists, which give well validated information in tumor series and in models on target activation, those technologies are obviously very welcome.
Thank you. A question from Stefano Cairo. Hi, could you develop around the notion of sustainability and the role of academics and SMEs?
Yeah. At the end of this project, we need to ensure that what we've developed will continue to exist and be testable. What form that takes at this point is an open question, but most likely involves some sort of, I guess for lack of a better term, a commercial entity along the lines of an SME, whether it's an existing or a new SME. But there has to be some way for this to continue on. And not only for the consortium members, but we have just had conversations about how it can become available or be made available for other potential research parties who are interested in taking advantage of what we've put together. So at this point, it's hard to say what that sustainability piece will look like, other than it's most likely there are models probably already out there that we can follow or pursue. Hubert, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I fully agree that the sustainability is very important. Otherwise, we build something which collapses directly after the project, which is not good for the research, but especially not good for the children. as an A sort of commercial entity, I agree, and there are quite some variations. SMEs are the most frequent, so organizational structure, but there are also non-for-profit foundation-like entities who run models and or model testing. So we explicitly have not limited ourselves to one specific solution for sustainability. It's typically something where the applicant consortium has the freedom to operate, as long as there is a strong likelihood that what is proposed by the applicant consortium can be made real and developed in the duration of the project.
Okay. Francisco M. Vega asks, proven expertise is needed by the contributors in different approaches like surgery and things. How can this be proven? Maybe Fatia, you can say something about how the independent experts judge the actual applicants when they look at applications.
I'm not sure it's really what the person who asked the question is looking for, but let's say that during the evaluation, the panel will go through the terms of reference of the call text and will make sure that your application is in line with the call text. So all the models that are more or less proposed in the call text and which are tools for development, like PDX generation or whatever, are needed. So when it comes to veracity of this model in the frame of the project, this is something to ask maybe to our topic writers. Thank you.
Yes, Hubert here. This pertains to slide 12, where we listed expected contributions of the applicants, and in bullet 3 we list proven surgical expertise for cellular pediatric generation, histopathology, tissue block creation. So this is not pediatric. This is not, say, top surgeons for pediatric oncology treatment. This is surgical expertise in being able to handle patient samples in the context of cell line and mouse model generation, and to be able to handle resulting tissues, to be able to handle mice who carry the model tumors, characterize them pathologically, and generate tissue blocks, tissues, etc.
Francisco, sorry to interrupt you. Francisco has just clarified what he means is, do they need to somehow show publications showing that they have this expertise or something like that?
Showing publications is one of the most obvious ways of proving the existence of the expertise, but there are other possibilities, right? If the center has not yet published but has generated 50 PDXs of a certain tumor over the last years, sure, that's also another way of showing that the expertise is there.
Jasmine Bartu asks, do all partners need to have access to a lab, or will it also be sufficient if one partner is just delivering the tumor models, for example, patient primary tumor cells?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Ernesto Tomei, who raised his hand a little while ago, has said, asking if a pediatrician or radiologist has seen the files he sent about skeletal age evaluation using magnetic resonance imaging. He says he's based in Rome. Ernesto, I don't know who you sent the files to. If you only sent it to IMI, then I guess the other people involved in this webinar have not seen it. And I would also add that at this stage, while we can certainly help you to network by sending around the participant list, we cannot send forward your files to you. You do need to kind of do your networking yourself, because this is a competitive call for proposals. So we can't help one potential applicant more than others. But like I say, you will get the participant list after the webinar, so that will be an opportunity for you to reach out to people who could be interesting to you. Stefano Cairo is asking about CRO activity and IP, just says CRO activity and IP valorization. I think that may be a bit of a follow-up to the question about sustainability because it's from the same person. But just as, of course, the questions of subcontracting and intellectual property, again, those are all addressed in our lovely webinar we had on our rules and procedures. So again, I suggest you have a look at that because that does cover most of the questions you might have in that area. And if you have more questions, you can get in touch with us. Another question from Francisco in Vega is asking if a collaboration with non-European laboratories in pediatric cancer, for example in the US, is useful or desirable.
Provided it's within the framework outlined by IMI, I think it's definitely useful and very much desirable if scientifically it makes sense.
I mean, I would certainly, we do generally encourage our projects to liaise with and work with other related projects in the same area. But don't forget that while partners from the US are welcome to participate in IMI projects, they are not generally eligible for funding, so they would need to have their own funding. But generally, as a principle at IMI, like I say, we really do encourage our projects to talk to similar related initiatives elsewhere, especially in the US, of course, where they have many similar setups and a lot of similar health challenges to us here in Europe. Roman Muff asks, for some of the disease entities listed in the literature review slide, there's no target known, MEK, ERK. We are specialized in osteosarcoma PDX models. Can we then still profit from the compounds provided by IMI?
Can I take this, Lou?
Yes.
The ResMedK pathway listed is one pilot project to force ourselves to develop a cross-company testing of multiple molecules in one pathway in our model systems we developed in this program to come up with testing of multiple molecules of multiple nodes and multiple molecules for the same target in the same pathway to help us deliver an approach and deliver data to solve the issue of prioritization. There are too many molecules out there to be all developed into the clinics in pediatrics. So one of the say, midterm goals of this program is to come up with the agreement on data packages and the potential to test molecules to deliver data to help prioritizing molecules for clinical development. This is not a limit to the molecules and the targets to be tested. And given the width and the depth of the total portfolio of the 5 companies involved, there will certainly be possibilities to test molecules and evaluate targets which are relevant for osteosarcoma.
So thank you for that. Stefano Cairo has clarified the question he had about IP. Could IP, in brackets sharing, on biomarkers for companion diagnostics be a sustainability vector for SMEs? Question.
I would say when you start talking about biomarkers, you're now entering into the clinical realm where their utility and the veracity of them needs to be proven. My initial reaction would be no from that standpoint. As a potential biomarker development project, without the clinical piece, I still think they'll remain largely unproven. What do you think, Hubert?
Yes, and if you focus on the part of the question which suggests that development of biomarkers for pediatrics could contribute to the sustainability of the project, this implies that this would generate funding to continue the project after the termination of after the 5 years. I don't think it's very likely that for molecules developed by pharma XYZ and then going into clinics in PEDS, that a separate biomarker program by this pre-competitive IMI2 platform will be able to generate funding sufficiently to keep this platform alive.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any more questions for the moment. You do still have a bit of time if you want to ask a question. Meanwhile, I will remind you that all of the call documentation is on the IMI website. You have the call text, rules for participation, the evaluation guidelines are also there as well, so you can see in detail what the evaluators are going to be looking at. As I said, I really would encourage you to take the time to read it, and if you have any questions, get in touch with us. It really is our job to help you to submit the best question you can, and it's really a pity sometimes when we see that people have misunderstood things or haven't read things properly, and what could have been a very good proposal falls by the wayside. So do take the time to read that material. We don't have any more questions coming in now, so in that case I think we can close the webinar. So I will say thank you very much to the speakers, to Louis and Hubert, and also to Birgit for being on hand with questions. Do any of you have anything you want to add?
No, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, and looking forward to very strong proposals.
In fact, I spoke too soon. We do have another question. How is it handled with publications? This is from Jasmine Bartle. Are partners allowed to publish the data at every time they want?
Publication is an obvious and desirable benefit and outcome to this project, subject to some of the rules, as I think you laid out, Catherine, regarding regulations and such that are sort of hard-coded by IMI. But certainly that is a very desirable and almost obligatory outcome for what we're doing.
I mean, most projects do kind of have protocols in place to agree on, you know, certainly when someone wants to publish some results or some data, then it's usually some kind of, you know, checking system or a committee that has to be consulted within the project. So that's something that I'm sure would be set up in the successful full consortium to just double check who communicates what on the project and when and all of these things. So that's something that's usually discussed in the quite late actually in the project.
Your materials, but I would want to echo Lou's desire to publish. This is a crucial part of the project, not only making the data internally in the project and then pushing them all forward into clinical development. Yes, that's one of the goals, but also publishing the results and making them available to the community in this pre-competitive program where we share between pharma and academia. Publishing is a very important part, and we plan to bring a publication strategy in the consortium management early on, so that it's clear to all partners how we go about data, how we decide on publication, who is partnering. But yes, it's very important to get the scientific output of the program going as well, for the children, but also for the academic partners as a return on investment.
Yeah, I mean, this is something Fatih has just pointed out that's usually in the consortium agreement, so this is something that will be discussed and clarified very early. Okay, that is our last question. So thank you again to our speakers and to Fatih for your presentations. Thank you to all of you for coming along and asking your questions. And I will wish you all the best of luck with your applications. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.